Hello, and welcome to another hour at the Golden Hour, which is a chance for you and me to do whatever we want and do it together for an hour. So, I am glad you are here. I hope you have something you want to work on, read, do, enjoy, anything you want companionship for or during. And if you want to hear a little bit of musings from me, that's what the beginning of the streams are about. For many, many streams, we've been recapping Sapiens, so I will continue to do that. I think this might be the last stream where we recap it. So, scoot this a little. Oh, don't fall, Mike. I think it needs more cord. There you go. Talking about essentially tinkering with life, becoming the designers of things. And I was mentioning how that generally terrifies me. And I think he would agree that the thought of letting us loose with the power we currently possess is a terrifying idea. He sort of gets to the conclusion of we really need to be clear about what our goals and intentions are before we go about using these things. Okay. The third way to change the laws of life is to engineer completely inorganic beings. The most obvious examples are computer programs and computer viruses that can undergo independent evolution. To which I put a question mark, next to which I put a question mark and said, tell me more. So he goes on to say, the field of genetic programming is today one of the most interesting spots in the computer science world. It tries to emulate the methods of genetic evolution. Many programmers dream of creating a program that could learn and evolve completely independently of its creator. In this case, the programmer would be a prima mobile, if that's how you pronounce it, a first mover, but his creation would be free to evolve in directions neither its maker nor any other human could ever have envisaged. A prototype for such a program already exists. It's called a computer virus. This kind of made me go, almost have two conflicting thoughts, like, what? These things don't go on to live lives of their own, like they live lives according to their programming. When he was talking about computer viruses undergoing independent evolution. And then I sort of thought, wait, no, maybe they do sort of set off with some initial programming, but then, where it goes from there is... Anyway, it says, as it spreads through the internet, the virus replicates itself millions upon millions of times, all the while being chased by predatory antivirus programs and competing with other viruses for a place in cyberspace. One day when the virus replicates itself, a mistake occurs, a computerized mutation. Perhaps the mutation occurs because the human engineer programmed the virus to make occasional random replication mistakes. Perhaps the mutation was due to a random error. If, by chance, the modified virus is better at evading antivirus programs without losing its ability to invade other computers, it will spread through cyberspace. If so, the mutants will survive and reproduce. As time goes by, cyberspace would be full of new viruses that nobody engineered and that undergo non-organic evolution. And then he says, are these living creatures? It depends on what you mean by living creatures. They have certainly been produced by a new evolutionary process, completely independent of the laws and limitations of organic evolution. Okay. Then he's talking about the Human Brain Project, hoping to recreate the complete human brain inside a computer. If successful, that would mean that after 4 billion years of milling around inside the small world of organic compounds, life will suddenly break out into the vastness of the inorganic realm, ready to take up shapes beyond our wildest dreams. Not all scholars agree that the mind works in a manner analogous to today's digital computers, and if it doesn't, present-day computers would not be able to simulate it. Yet, it would be foolish to categorically dismiss the possibility before giving it a try. In 2013, the project received a grant of £1 billion from the European Union, or sorry, €1 billion from the European Union. Wow. Okay, the next thing I underlined says, our late modern world prides itself on recognizing, bless you, Lewis, prides itself on recognizing for the first time in history the basic equality of all humans, yet it might be poised to create the most unequal of all societies. Meaning if we create this, sort of superhuman, what happens kind of to the rest of us who are just regular old human? And then I underlined, this is not science fiction. And wrote, I feel a sense of dread at the inevitability of all of this. I think that's a lot of where my dread comes from. I feel this sort of lack of control. Like I think, like the snowball's already rolling down the mountain and I'm like, I don't see us cooperating well enough to like do this in a really good fashion. Okay. Later he says, physicists define the Big Bang as a singularity. It is a point at which all the known laws of nature did not exist. Time, too, did not exist. It is thus meaningless to say that anything existed before the Big Bang. We may be fast approaching a new singularity, when all the concepts that give meaning to our world, me, you, men, women, love, and hate, will become irrelevant. Anything happening beyond that point is meaningless to us. Okay, then I've bracketed something and put a star by it. Those are things that I usually think are really central ideas here, or that I really liked. The Frankenstein myth confronts Homo sapiens with the fact that the last days are fast approaching. Unless some nuclear or ecological catastrophe intervenes, so goes the story, the pace of technological development will soon lead to the replacement of Homo sapiens by completely different beings who possess not only different physiques, but also very different cognitive and emotional worlds. This is something most sapiens find extremely disconcerting. We like to believe that in the future, people just like us will travel from planet to planet in fast spaceships. We don't like to contemplate the possibility that in the future, beings with emotions and identities like ours will no longer exist, and our place will be taken by alien life forms whose abilities dwarf our own. And then later, I underline something that will look at us as condescendingly as we look at the Neanderthals. Okay, then I bracketed, we cannot be certain whether today's Frankensteins will indeed fulfill this prophecy. The future is unknown, and it would be surprising if the forecasts of the last few pages were realized in full. History teaches us that what seems to be just around the corner may never materialize due to unforeseen barriers, and that other unimagined scenarios will in fact come to pass. When the nuclear age erupted in the 1940s, many forecasts were made about the future nuclear world of the year 2000. When Sputnik and Apollo 11 fired the imagination of the world, everyone began predicting that by the end of the century, people would be living in space colonies on Mars and Pluto. Few of these forecasts came true. On the other hand, nobody foresaw the internet. So I wrote, yes, it's important to take all of these things together. We must still take our best shot at prudent action, though. So yeah, I definitely resonate with sort of reining in, some of these ideas and predictions about the future, whether that be of disaster or, great change or change that looks a certain way, that there's so much that's unknown, but we do have to take whatever steps we can to be prudent in our current situation. Later, he says what we should take seriously is the idea that the next stage of history will include not only technological and organizational transformations, but also fundamental transformations in human consciousness and identity. Later, he writes, if the curtain is indeed about to drop on Sapiens history, we members of one of its final generations should devote some time to answering one last question. What do we want to become? This question, sometimes known as the human enhancement question, dwarfs the debates that currently preoccupy politicians, philosophers, scholars, and ordinary people. Okay, then on the last page of the book, before the afterword, he says, well, I'm skipping, so the beginning won't make sense. But it says, all of these are important questions, but it is naive to imagine that we might simply hit the brakes and stop the scientific projects that are upgrading Homo sapiens into a different kind of being. For these projects are inextricably meshed together with the Gilgamesh project. That was the project to, vanquish death. Ask scientists why they study the genome, or try to connect a brain to a computer, or try to create a mind inside a computer. 9 out of 10 times you'll get the same standard answer. We're doing it to cure diseases and save human lives. Even though the implications of creating a mind inside a computer are far more dramatic than curing psychiatric illnesses, this is the standard justification given, because nobody can argue with it. So then he says, the only thing we can try to do is to influence the direction scientists are taking. And I concur. I feel the sense of inevitability, right? That these things are going to happen. And he just said it too. It would be naive to think that we can just, let's stop progress. It seems a little wild. Let's just, everybody hold off, right? It's just not going to happen. Because there are too many good and altruistic things motivating it, not necessarily because it's some awful, conspiracy or, malicious thing. So it becomes very, very, very important for us to consider, okay, in what direction would we like to proceed? And he says, but since we might soon be able to engineer our desires too, the real question facing us is not, what do we want to become, but what do we want to want? Those who are not spooked by this question probably haven't given it enough thought. So that's how the book ends, and then there's a short afterword, in which I underlined, we have advanced from canoes to galleys to steamships to space shuttles, but nobody knows where we're going. And the book truly ends with this. Is there anything more dangerous than dissatisfied and irresponsible gods who don't know what they want? So the real, danger facing us here, lurking here, is indecision, lack of clarity, lack of direction. What type of being do we want to create next? With what kind of desires and goals, and what do we want to foster? What kind of creature do we want to create? While I was saying for a while how surprised I was that the sort of penultimate chapter / conclusion was about our happiness, I see that more as a bit of preamble to his real conclusion, which is we've got to know, as we begin to try to understand what drives us, if we look at the subject of happiness, we're beginning the real study, the real subject that we need to master before we move on, which is, knowing what drives us, figuring out what actually benefits us, so that we can make prudent choices, that we would have the discernment to know in what direction we want to head. So that, my friends, is the incomparable Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. We have finished going through it. We know and love this book now. We've spent lots of time with it, as I've said before, deservedly so. So you might see me continue to flip through it as I'm working on a writing project. I am also looking through here for quotes I've underlined, so that's why I'm still looking at it. But yeah, I think I will go ahead and reset our timer. We've actually got 45 minutes left, and we'll get started. So good luck to you, whatever you're working on. There, I scooped up a kitty. Yeah, you were wandering by. Hi. Hello, kitty cat. Hello, kitty cat. What? Oh, fine. See ya. I'm making faces at my cat, Dottie, who was atop a tower of boxes. I think I'm going to go... I might... Oh, do I want to go longer? I may not. I think I have too much more. Okay. Thought I might go longer. Changed my mind. All right, so... Let me pull this closer. All right, so that is our hour for today. Hope you're happy with it. And I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. Think of something you want to do. Come by, hang out, and we'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.